Hi, remember Kendra? Kendra the Oracle? The one who fell in love with her psychiatrist? Well, I don't think you need my judgment on that one, but this story inspired me to make a therapy episode. I think we started to forget what the actual unethical behavior looks like. On a serious note, from all the discussions around the Kendra Gate, I realized many people don't actually know what to expect from their therapist, what is okay, what is not okay in therapy, and we probably don't talk enough about that. So let's take a bunch of stories where something basically went wrong in therapy and ask who is at fault. I'm no expert, I've never worked as a mental health professional, but I do actually have a degree in psychology that I normally use to wipe my butt. So maybe I could call myself half an expert. That said, let's go! Am I overreacting for thinking my psychiatrist asking to move in with me is inappropriate? Now that is what I call boundary violation. So last week I had an appointment with my psychiatrist, and I had disclosed to her that my husband and I were buying a house. She asked details of the house, and when we were closing, so I told her. She then replied with, "That's perfect. I just need one bedroom and a kitchen. I like to cook." Of course at first I thought she was joking, but then she went on. She goes, "I told my landlord I am moving out of my current place, because the commute is too far, and I am looking for something closer to work. Would you be willing to rent a room out to me?" She then showed me text threads with her current landlord, who was praising her for being a good tenant. I kind of brushed it off and said, "Well, I don't know about a room, but the place we're renting now will be available once we move out." And she said that would be nice, but she was looking for something cheaper. As our session ended, she told me to call her if I needed her, and then she said, "But I might need you first." Now my husband thought it was funny when I told him. My best friend thinks this woman should not be a psychiatrist. I have had previous uncomfortable encounters with her, where she told me my miscarriage happened because I wasn't happy enough. And this most current session, she told me it's cause my baby knew that we didn't own a home yet. Am I overreacting, thinking that this person is wildly inappropriate? Update to Ed. She is a psych NP, not a psychiatrist. That's my bad. Update. To everyone saying I don't know how you kept seeing her after the miscarriage comment, well, honestly, I was blaming myself anyways. She wasn't saying anything that I hadn't already thought of. I see now that it was wrong, but at the time, she was just saying what I was saying to myself every day. I will not be going back to her. I know now I should have left, but I was literally fucking grieving and feeling guilty anyways. Update. I'm reporting her and switching providers. Thanks for all the comments. The answer is straightforward. You are not overreacting. This whole request is absolutely unacceptable. It's not entirely clear from the post whether she's your therapist or just prescribes meds, but in any case, living with your patient is almost as bad as sleeping with them. As a doctor or therapist, you need to keep your distance. Otherwise, emotions are gonna cloud your judgment. This is why you can't work with friends or relatives. And I'm pretty sure roommates need to be on this list, if they're not for some reason. Like, imagine a patient is telling you about their symptoms, but you're a bit too close to them, you know a little bit too much, and in your head you're like, "Oh, they're always complaining, they're so dramatic," and you don't take them seriously anymore. And this is just one example off the top of my head of what can go wrong. As for the patient, they need to respect their doctor, to follow their recommendations. There needs to be a certain level of authority, if that's the right word. And that also requires distance. I mean, everyone is a mess, mental health professionals included, but you probably don't want to see your mental health professional being a mess. Otherwise you're gonna be like, what do they know? Now, all of this would be bad enough if a P lived alone and was actually looking for roommates. But she specifically told the psychiatrist she was buying a house with her husband. A literal love nest. Why would you want to insert yourself in there? That's weird. She would be able to hear conversations, fights, intimacy, everything. No doctor should be a part of that. Next issue. Asking a patient for a favor is inappropriate in itself. Because guess what? There's a power imbalance. As a patient, you might feel extra pressure to please. Also, when she said she was looking for something cheaper, maybe she just meant a room as opposed to a whole house or apartment. But maybe she also expected OP to cut her deal because of their relationship. That is abuse of power. But all of that pales in comparison to the miscarriage comment. Saying that you miscarried because you were not happy enough, or because the baby knew you didn't have a home. The second could be written off as a joke, although highly inappropriate, but the former is straight up blaming you for something bad and traumatic you had no control over. That's the moment you walk out and never come back. Unfortunately, OP wasn't able to do so in her vulnerable state. I mean, not right away, but good on her for reporting that specialist. She shouldn't be working in mental health with this level of emotional intelligence. As for Psych NP, that means psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I'm a bit confused, because it's not a thing in Russia. From what I read, they can both prescribe meds and do therapy sessions, just like an actual psychiatrist, except they're lower in title. Honestly, I don't think it matters. I think the boundaries should still apply. The comments seem to be entirely on OP's side, unsurprisingly. Everyone is completely floored by the psychiatrist's, or rather the nurse's behavior, and is begging OP to report her. Someone says, "You're not even allowed to be Facebook friends with your psychiatrist, let alone live with them, for fuck's sake." Huh, I didn't know that. Someone yells in caps lock, "Report her right now, or ask someone at her governing board to help you do it. She is dangerously unprofessional." Sorry for the shouting, but as a mental health professional who taught boundaries and ethics, I'm not only outraged, I'm scared for you. You are not getting proper care. Please, please, do not keep working with her, at the very least, and consider keeping her from hurting other vulnerable people. OP is definitely underreacting. It's time to dissociate herself from this woman. At this point, she's crossed every professional boundary. She's giving off some serious single white female vibes. As a single white female, I'm just gonna stare at this comment while you are waiting for me to continue. I'm not sure which is more horrific, her asking to move in with you, or telling a grieving mother that the reason she miscarried was because the baby only wanted homeowners. For fuck's sake, the audacity she has is second to none. How is she involved in a mental health career if she can't even show sympathy/empathy in that situation? I would have contacted the board of nursing the second I left the appointment. Okay, case closed. This was an easy one. Am I overreacting? I left my therapist for political reasons. I said, "I understand this is personal and possibly inappropriate, but I need to know if you voted for Trump. I don't want to receive life advice, be vulnerable, and be treated by someone with such a drastically different set of morals and values than I have." She said it shouldn't matter who she voted for. I said, in this case for me it does. She said she would not tell me who she voted for, but that she's conflicted by many of the issues. I asked what she's conflicted about. She said she's conflicted about Black Lives Matter movement, because it was violent, and she said she's conflicted about social programs, because she doesn't want people taking advantage of them. You're against social programs, and you're a therapist? I told her that pretty much answers my question. And I'm thankful for our time, but I'm sorry. I don't think I can continue working with you. She got pretty angry, said she was disappointed, and teared up a bit. I feel like kind of a dick, but can't justify paying money for treatment from someone I fundamentally disagree with about what being a good person means. I don't know. Am I overreacting? Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. Wow, I'm still conflicted about how I handled this. I know I could have done it in a better way, and I appreciate the honest feedback. I don't post very much, and I've never had so many people respond. So, this one caught my attention because a similar thing happened to someone in my life. Except they didn't ask any questions, it just came up that the therapist voted for Putin. And it was their last session. Which kinda sucks, cause the therapist was actually helpful and never ever brought her terrible beliefs into therapy. But at the same time, I totally understand, and I think I'd make the same decision. A therapist is someone you need to trust and respect. Maybe even look up to a little. Probably not for everyone, but at least for me. And it's not gonna work if you think they're stupid, or cruel, or both. And I know what some people are gonna say. I kinda agree, so here it goes. Yes, our societies are horribly polarized, both Russian and American. Two camps, no dialogue. Everyone is demonizing the other side, almost refusing to see them as human. And intellectually you might understand it's not helping, but emotionally there's hatred, contempt, resentment, might feel like the other side ruined your life and future. And therapy is hard enough without all that baggage. I don't think therapy is the time and place for bridging this divide, unless this is something you are working on specifically. Now, people have all sorts of preferences in therapists. Gender, age, religion, political alignment is just another one. And it's clearly a deal breaker for you right now, which is totally valid. You definitely shouldn't continue therapy just out of guilt or something. It won't be effective. That said, you did bulldoze her into quote-unquote confessing her beliefs. Who you voted for is personal information, and she's entitled to her privacy, however wrong she is about everything. It was okay to ask, but you demanded an answer, and she wasn't obligated to give it to you. So you are not blameless in this interaction, but you are also not overreacting to her being a Trump voter. We live in uniquely shitty times, and I'm afraid there's no etiquette for that. Not uniquely shitty as in worst in history. I'm dramatic, but not dramatic enough to state that. More like shitty in new and exciting ways. In the comments, many people point out that you can fire your therapist for whatever reason. And I guess this is the simplest and the least controversial way to think about it. Someone says, I'm starting to become a mental health counselor, and the client can fire us for any reason they see fit. But we are also taught to not just answer these questions up front. In my personal opinion, I don't know if this is actually what your therapist is supposed to do. After you express you are not comfortable with a therapist who votes a certain way, she should have told you straight up who she voted for, and given you the opportunity to make an informed choice. Another commenter puts it very concisely. If you are uncomfortable receiving help from this person, then you need to find another therapist. The reason doesn't really matter. A lot of people are sharing their experiences, someone says. I know who my therapist voted for. Otherwise, how would I be able to talk about the shit show we're seeing now? Another person agrees. Our first appointment after the election, my therapist seemed more broken than me. She's a great therapist, and it was a needed session. It didn't interfere with the appointment. But it was comforting, to me at least, to know going into the appointment that I would be speaking with someone who feels the way I do, and would also be struggling to reckon with our new world. Some people also have positive experiences with therapists who don't share their views. Someone says, the best therapist I've ever had was my political opposite. I'm a hyper-progressive Jew. She's a conservative wasp. I don't know what that means. Who thought it was crazy that I believed the fry cook should be able to afford rent. But she saw through any bullshit I pulled in sessions. She challenged me, and in the end of the day, the trust I showed her was rewarded. That was in 2016, which means there's been 2 more elections and almost a decade of Trump since then. If I were to start with her today, especially in the light of January 6th and all of the hate-mongering and lies in 2024, I honestly don't know if I could have shrugged off her politics. Yeah, so for me, someone who voted for Putin equals someone who hates me and wants me to die, or at least go to prison. That's hardly therapist material. I actually had to seek help after a certain political event, and I can't even imagine opening up about it to someone who didn't feel the same about it. It wasn't something fixable, so the whole point was sharing the grief, and I guess hearing from someone who feels the same way but knows how to live on. There's comfort in sharing grief. There's comfort in going through shit together. I didn't even think about it when giving my initial answer, but yeah, sure, the political stuff is often the content of therapy, not just the context, especially these days. And I know some people want to have discussions, that is totally valid, but many people are just feeling down and don't want to be invalidated on top of that. Let me try to find a comment that puts it well. Here it is. Imagine opening up to your therapist and they just think you are some kind of snowflake or whatever. Yeah. They probably won't say it aloud if they are any good, but they probably will think you're too sensitive. Or care about things that are not worth caring about. Or pathologize the fact that you care. They care too much. Their brain is fucked up. Like a couple of days before the war started, the Russia's war against Ukraine, I was at the doctor's and I was given some mental health test with some statements to agree or disagree with. And one of them was, I feel like something terrible might happen any day. And I was like, duh! A war might start any day. My country might start a fucking war. That's not me being fucked up in the head. And that pretty much sums up the way I feel about getting therapy from someone not on my side. Cause they're gonna think it's me. It's always me. And the truth is, it's partly me, and it's partly the world. I need someone who can tell the difference. Now there are lots of comments about looking for yes men, being stuck in echo chambers, the need to be challenged in therapy. If you're just looking for something to mindlessly agree with you, I guess it's your money, but I would personally prefer somebody who challenges my views in a respectful way and can accept me as a person, even if you come to a stalemate on some things. Might be good for you. If you want someone to parrot your political views back to you, do you really want someone objective, or do you want someone that will mirror back your every thought? Maybe you are looking for a yes man, not a therapist. A therapist isn't your friend, they're there to guide you through mental health concerns, not necessarily agree with every belief you have. Being around people who only think like you is going to put you in an echo chamber. Well, first of all, no one said anything about a therapist having to agree with their every belief. OP did not give their therapist a fucking questionnaire on every social, political and moral problem. They had one question and one requirement. I feel like y'all are being a little disingenuous when you jump from one simple requirement to everything, every belief. There are also multiple comments about the polarization thing, but they're out of the scope of this story in my opinion. The bottom line is there are pros and cons to being aligned or misaligned politically with a therapist. If you're on the same side, you can go through shit together, but there also might be some echo chamber effect. If you're opposed, they can challenge you in a healthy way, but there might be some unwanted tension. But ultimately, guess what? It's all about what kind of person can help you according to you. If you think this person is gonna help you despite their views or because of them, it will prove true. Same if you think they're not gonna help you. Am I the asshole for asking my therapist if he farted/took a dump? I've been in therapy for about a month because I'm struggling with a few personal issues/major life decisions. We've been doing therapy via Zoom and telephone. My therapist is a nice guy and I feel that he's been helping. We had a session yesterday and he asked if we could use the telephone rather than Zoom because his connection wasn't good. I agreed. About 1/3 of the way through the call, I heard a fart. A really loud, unmistakable fart. And I know it came from his end of the phone, lol. I was kinda shocked, so I just kept talking. But then a couple of minutes later, I heard some more unmistakable sounds. It literally sounded like he was taking a shit while we were on the phone. I heard the water plop. At this point I'm disgusted and annoyed, and said, sorry, but are you taking a shit while talking to me? He got all flustered and denied it. I said, I heard you fart, and now I hear plopping noises. I'm not an idiot. I told him it feels disrespectful, because he wasn't focused on what I was saying, and I feel violated too, like what if that's a fetish or something? It's just unprofessional. He kept denying, and I said it's fine, but I don't want to listen to you taking a dump, so I hung up. He didn't call back. I got an email today, hence the post, saying we need to reconsider therapy at this time, because of my behavior. Seriously, what? Was I really out of line for that? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when he was the rude one. Am I the asshole? OP is absolutely not the asshole. Imagine pouring your heart out while your therapist is literally pouring out something else entirely. Anyone would have questions. Now the therapist is the asshole for using his asshole during the session. That is unless you're hallucinating or your connection is so bad that it makes realistic fart sounds, in which case there would be no assholes. But with all due disrespect, I don't think it was a fetish. More likely the therapist had an emergency. And that's okay, happens to the best of us. But he shouldn't have subjected you to it. A professional way to handle it would be to say, I'm so sorry, I have an emergency. Something I've eaten disagrees with me. Can we pause or reschedule? I'm sure OP would be understanding, most people would be understanding. Or, if you want to continue so badly, at least hit mute while you're not talking. Instead, he powered through, failed to mute, and proceeded to gaslight you. And double down the next day. Farting is not the problem here. The problem is lack of accountability and honesty. He also chose to protect his dignity, already flushed down the toilet by the way, above your trust and well-being. So if he wants to end therapy, I think it's for the best. Reddit's verdict is not the asshole, but the comments are actually divided. Many people suspect OP jumped to conclusions and the therapist wasn't actually shitting. And we don't know 100% if he was. But I believe OP because first of all, the sounds are pretty unmistakable, and second, his reaction screams guilty. Here are some good comments that thoroughly explain what's wrong with his reaction. Wouldn't he say, oh, that's not the case, the noises came from blank, why would he just get flustered and not offer any reasonable explanation? You'd think a therapist would be able to understand how someone can perceive something by accident. And instead of getting mad at them, it would be more beneficial to be understanding and explain things. Getting flustered and defensive doesn't tell someone that what they heard was wrong. It tells them that they need to keep quiet and not trust their senses, and literally believe what people tell them instead of their own hearing. That just isn't good. If it were an accidental noise somehow, he'd be calm and help OP understand. Also, if he were a good therapist, he'd do that. Another person says, as a therapist, the first priority is always establishing trust. If the client is hearing noises leading them to believe they don't have your full undivided attention, you need to address that. The client is telling you, I don't feel safe. He dismissed that and got agitated. Based on that, he's either a bad therapist or he had a really bad day and didn't have the self-awareness to cancel his sessions due to it. He then followed up, blaming the client. Only one option then remains. He's a bad therapist. A shitty therapist. Another one. Even if he wasn't cheating, that's not how a therapist would respond. I know, I am one. And we're supposed to model good communication to our clients. Everything is a therapeutic moment. Even mistaking noise for shit sounds can be used. If it were me, I'd probably say something like, "Hey, you got really upset with me yesterday." Adjusting to telehealth is strange for a soul, and I can see how XXX noise could have been misunderstood and taken as me not being attentive. He also responded by hanging up on me, and you've mentioned you tend to walk away when things are tense. How about we clear this up next week? I'll make sure my connection is strong enough to support video. And even if you are going to terminate therapy, you definitely don't blame the client. You say something about it not being a good fit and you offer a referral. Couldn't agree more. I said there would be no assholes if the therapist wasn't actually shitting and it was all a misunderstanding, but you know what? He would still be the asshole for the way he reacted. If I was talking to someone on the phone and they asked if I was pooping and I wasn't, I'd be like, lol, what? Why would you think that? I'm not even a therapist, but I wouldn't go, I'm not pooping, I'm not pooping, I'm not pooping, I said I'm not pooping! And as a therapist, it's your fucking job to observe how the client misconstrues things and call them out on it in an empathetic way. So if they did actually misconstrue something, the therapist missed a perfect opportunity to explore it. Then there's some outrage about the fetish comment. For example, OP accused the therapist of sexual harassment. It's crazy how everyone thinks that's an acceptable reaction, especially when accusations like that can destroy their career. And another one. If OP accused him of having a fetish to his face, I think his response was actually proportional, regardless of what happened, like even if he really did take a dump. It's scary to be accused of sexual misconduct, when really you're just a dunce who thought the person wouldn't be able to hear the rest of what was happening in the room. And another one. You're the asshole. I think you went too far with the accusations. I wouldn't want to listen to someone poop, but you jumped straight past all the reasonable explanations to this is a fetish and I'm being violated. Accusing someone of sexually violating you because you heard some noises that might have been plops can ruin a career without any real basis. Right, this is quite a jump between his pooping and it must be sexual, but we know nothing about OP's experience and traumas, so the tone of these comments rubs me the wrong way. Besides, it doesn't sound like OP actually made this a thing. They were just sharing thoughts and feelings about the situation. And one of them was, yikes, what if this is a fetish? And it wasn't even the first thing that came out of their mouth. The first point was about the lack of focus by the therapist. And it's probably unwise to dig into this rabbit hole, but it kinda bugs me how everyone is so concerned about false allegations against men and their ruined careers. Well, this is such a small problem statistically compared to actual male violence against women. And we don't actually know if OP is a woman, but everyone in the comments seem to think so. If that's the case, okay, a woman said in a private therapy session she feels violated. And y'all are reacting like she called the police because he farted. Or, made a viral TikTok series. Some people think OP was rude for reacting, because when someone farts, the polite thing to do is ignore it, which, by the way, I don't blame him for farting. It's an accident. But I remind you that OP did not say anything until it came to plopping sounds. But the most unhinged Redditors think there's nothing wrong with it, even if he was pooping. I don't understand why you are offended at a bodily function that is common to everyone. Etiquette really isn't about what we dislike, it's about norms. So no need to be offended at spontaneous functions that are common, like burps or farts. Sorry. Yeah, to be ignored if you are talking about how good manners work. But some using the loo does not detract from a conversation in any meaningful way. Your imagining them pooping is what you focused on. But it's not actually inappropriate to use the toilet in private. Yeah, keyword in private. It's rude to ask about it. It's not rude to poop on the phone, but it's rude to ask about it? Okay, taking notes. You feel he wasn't focused on you, but you ignore that we all multitask all the time, and it doesn't mean we are ignoring the people around us. I assume you talk while you drive, so you know you can do two things at once, is my point. Well, pooping is not like driving. Driving is automatic if you're an experienced driver. Pooping is not automatic. Pooping takes effort. Also, in most cases, by multitasking you do pay less attention to every single task you're trying to do at the same time. And therapists are absolutely not supposed to multitask during therapy sessions. We're not talking about your friend taking a dump during a casual chat. It's a fucking therapist. Someone you would presumably pay a lot of money for their undivided attention. I'm done with this comment section, even if stupidity overturned here. And that's it for today. Tell me in the comments about the crazy things your therapist did.